spelled with a W. Mike and I worked together from 2011 to 2015. He and I had some interesting conversations back in the day. So tonight I just want to talk to him about what he's been doing since I left Mississippi. How you doing, Mike?
Good, good. Good to see you.
So tonight we're going to talk about your business, like I said, Train Wright Canine. So I was just curious, could you tell us a brief history of how you got started training dogs?
Well, I've been with working dogs in some form or fashion since 1985, in kind of every facet of the industry, I guess you'd say, from scent dogs to sight dogs, to protection dogs, scent work, narcotics, things like that. And probably after doing this for quite a long time, working with dogs, about 3 years ago, when our previous employer finally closed down, I went back to school to get certifications for things that I'd already been doing. And so I'm now certified and have been certified in behavior modification, protection training, decoy work, which is putting on the suit or having the sleeve and getting bit by the dog and actually training the dog how to bite, where to bite, and with what pressure to bite, and with what part of his mouth to bite. Behavior modification, protection work, decoy work, scent work, narcotics, and search and rescue, and also patrol work for the police dogs. So what a patrol dog is a dog that is usually a dual purpose dog. When we say that, that means he has two jobs. One is the patrol part, which is the bite work, the protection work. And the second part is some sort of scent work, either narcotics or a bomb dog. So in that patrol work, he also does some scent work when he's man tracking, like a bad guy. He tracks the bad guy. The difference between that dog and a search and rescue dog is when the patrol dog finds the guy, he gets to bite him. Search and rescue dog doesn't get to bite the person at the end. So a little bit of difference there. So the reward for a patrol dog is the bite at the end. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I was just going to ask you, there's of course different breeds of dogs. And so what would be your favorite breed for a family dog?
That's an excellent question. Honestly, I look at dogs, a family dog. I still want a dog to have a job, right? And when I say a job, most of our dogs love us in some form or fashion. And if we have an obedient dog, that really just enhances that love and that affection that we have. But I want a dog to have a job, to do something for the family. And most of the time, I would say get one of the breeds of dogs that has some instincts that are more toward protection and could do some work. So personally, the dog that I would recommend for an active family, for a family dog, is a German Shepherd. For a non-active family that really just wanted a pet dog, nothing more, nothing less, one of the doodle breeds, one of the Labradoodles, the Golden Doodles, anything mixed with a poodle, because they don't shed, they're hypoallergenic, and usually really sharp, really easily trainable. So, but for an active family, a German Shepherd in general. For a non-active, just pet-only family, one of the doodle breeds.
So you mentioned German Shepherd. I noticed, a lot of police stations use German Shepherd. So my next question would be, what is your favorite breed for protection? Is it a German Shepherd or is it something different?
The breed of dogs that I raise and train are Belgian Malinois. And they're like a German Shepherd, on crack. Is what I tell people. But in general, I recommend German Shepherds for homes that want a protection dog, that want a personal protection dog. The Malinois that I work do make excellent personal protection dogs, but they're real high energy and they're geared more toward sport or patrol or things of that nature. And being that high energy, a lot of people don't want to do what it takes to kind of quell some of that energy. And then you get a dog that's sort of destructive, where a German Shepherd can lay around for 2 or 3 hours and just chill. A Malinois can't lay around 2 or 3 hours. 30 minutes is about tops. So German Shepherds in general are my go-to breed. There are some problems with them. And we'll talk about that, because one of your questions I noticed later is a covert breed, a breed that would be intermediate. And if we'll just go right on into that, the best breed or breeds all the way around, German Shepherd for the active family, but there are some other breeds that do some things really well, maybe not to the level of a German Shepherd in protection work, and maybe not to the level of one of the doodles in pet work. But for instance, Airedale Terriers. I have an Airedale Terrier female who's a European bred female, and she's a tremendous protection dog. She's solid. Her obedience is locked down solid. Her bite work is top shelf. There's some pictures of her on my Facebook page. But the thing about an Airedale is that they call them the king of the terriers. They range anywhere from about 45 to 70 pounds. They don't shed. They're hypoallergenic. They love people. Love people. And then you have a couple of other breeds. Giant Schnauzers is another breed that was in general years ago was one of the top shelf protection dogs. And if you find good breeders of these dogs now, you still got that is still in them. So you got Giant Schnauzers, which are also non-shedding hypoallergenic dogs, and Airedale Terriers. You just can't beat them. And the thing about them is, when I show up with a 90-pound German Shepherd that looks bad, people say, hey, I bet that dog will bite, But I can walk down the street with an Airedale heeling at my side off leash, and nobody thinks that's a protection dog, right? So we talk about covert protection dogs. Those, the Schnauzers and the Airedales, those are the breeds that really come to mind for really nice protection dogs, if they're bred right, if they have the lineage to be able to do that job. We here in America have messed up a lot of breeds, German Shepherds being one. Continental bred German Shepherds in general aren't nearly as predictable in as far as protection, being able to do protection work or being able to do scent work as the European breeds. We have a kind of a funny way of doing things here. We breed to get a cute litter of puppies, and in Europe and Holland and Czechoslovakia, places like that, they breed to get a tool to do a job. Those puppies are a tool that can be your buddy, but first and foremost, they're a tool. Here in the United States, we want to breed cute little puppies that somebody wants to buy that'll be your buddy, So we've messed up several breeds by doing it that way. So whenever I say continental bred dogs, I usually say that sort of in a negative connotation, because the European dogs in general are bred for work. So that's why I say that. Sorry to ramble on so long, but it was 3 or 4 questions answered in one.
No problem. So is there a specific method that you use to train dogs? I know in different industries there are different styles or methods. Is there something you use specifically?
Yeah, there in the dog training world, in the canine world, there's about as many methods of the only thing that 2 trainers can agree on is that the 3rd trainer is doing it wrong. So there's several different methods of training dogs, and a bunch of them get you to the same place. They just get you there a little bit differently. There's a lot of ways to get to China. Sometimes you take a boat, sometimes you take a plane, but you get there ultimately. I use here's the professional spiel that I give. The approach that I take training dogs is a primarily positive basis with the least amount of compulsion or correction necessary to gain the desired result. So if you had to put it in a nutshell, we're a primarily reward-based training system. That means positive reward, right? So we use positive methods to train with the least amount of compulsion necessary. And when people hear that, they say, well, what does that mean, compulsion? Well, and I explain to them, if you've had kids, there's times that you can't love your kids or reward your kids enough into being a good kid, into being obedient. There's a thing called self-rewarding behavior, and kids do it. We adults do it. Dogs do it. If that dog is running a squirrel through the woods and you say, Ollie, come, and Ollie's running that squirrel and he really enjoys running that squirrel, then he's getting more enjoyment out of running that squirrel maybe than that little piece of chicken you got when he comes to you. So he's going to keep running that squirrel. That's self-rewarding behavior. Same with kids. And I explain that to people that, sometimes you have to compulse or correct. We use compulsion, and that's the word we use in the dog world. You have to correct your children into obedience, the same way that God has to correct us into obedience sometimes. So we do use the least amount necessary to gain the desired result. If there's never any negative, there is no positive, right? Jesus even said, if there was no law, then there's no sin. Paul talked about that in the book of Romans. If there's no law, there's no sin. Well, obviously there's got to be some negative to offset the positive. Here's another question. You talked about the yin and the yang in my symbol, in the trained right symbol, right? The reason that we use the yin and the yang is for balance, right? If there was daylight all the time, we wouldn't know what night was, and vice versa. If it was dark all the time, we'd never know what daylight is. So positive and negative, we do have to use some negative in training. So that's why the yin and the yang, for balance. I want to show a balanced approach to what we do. And when you use a balanced approach and you take away conflict in the dog's mind and in the handler's mind, right? And everybody's on the same page. Wow, the things that can happen. I mean, it's crazy how far a dog and handler combination can go when they understand the goal. And conflict or confusion. We use conflict in the dog world again, much like compulsion. When we take conflict away in their mind, it's crazy the things that can be accomplished. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, it did. So for those who might have older dogs who might watch this, we've always heard that saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
That's right.
Is that true? Is a dog ever too old to train?
The only two prerequisites you have to have for me to be able to train your dog is that, number one, your dog is breathing. Number two, he enjoys eating. If he does those two things, he's trainable, right? So no, your dog's never too old. Yeah. And your dog never has too many problems to train. Now let's be perfectly honest here. I don't want to dog Caesar, Milan out, or whatever his name is, the dog whisperer, but you can't make dogs that have had 8 or 10 years of a certain behavior. You can't turn that around in 2 weeks, okay? Because it's embedded in who they are. You and I have both worked with some people in the past that had a certain attitude, and you weren't going to change that attitude with one talk or one attitude adjustment, right? So, and it's the same with dogs. Although there is no dog or no person whose attitude can't be shifted somewhat. So we can make almost any behavioral issue better. And some we can absolutely cure, but there's none that we can't make better, right? So no, never too old, and never too many problems to make better.
Yes. So what would the average time to train a dog be? You mentioned 2 weeks. So if I bought a puppy and brought it to you and I wanted it trained for obedience training, how long would that take?
Well, we do a 2-week inboard for basic obedience. So it takes 2 weeks from the time I get your 12 to 14-week-old puppy. It takes 2 weeks for it to be completely on leash obedience trained, right? That means with a leash. So it'll do all the things that it's supposed to do on leash. When you walk, it'll heel next to you, not pulling the leash left or right, front or forwards, or front or backwards. It'll heel next to your leg. When you stop, that puppy will sit when you stop. It'll do a sit, stay, and a down stay to the end of the leash, and its recall will be started. So it'll recall from the end of the leash and come and sit in front of you. The thing is, all of our on-leash obedience, if you just do on-leash, then you're going to have a really nice dog. But all of our on-leash and the way we teach it is a building block for off-leash, which means your dog is completely off-leash, right? There's no tether involved, and your dog is so obedient that it'll do everything that it's supposed to do with just the word of your mouth or a hand signal. So everything we do is a building block for that. And the way we do it is a building block. It's a stepping stone to get to off leash. So 2 weeks, if you do an inboard. Now, we also do private lessons. I only do private lessons and inboards. I don't do group lessons, because if you don't have engagement, right now I'm engaged with you. I'm looking at your eyes, right? If I don't have engagement, then I don't have training. I can't train if I don't have engagement. You've been in meetings where you were holding a meeting, and I have too, and we've had people that nodded off and went to sleep, right? We've seen that. But and if you don't have that engagement, then they didn't hear a word you said. Same with dogs. So you've got to have engagement to be able to train. So I do private lessons where it's the handler and me and the dog. And those usually take 4 to 6 weeks, and it's an hour lesson. But it's incumbent on the handler to work on the skills that I give them in that 1 or 1.5 hours, and work on those all that week, right? If they do that, then it goes pretty quick. And it's also, it relies heavily on the dog being engaged and being kind of a sharp dog. The sharper dogs get it quicker, and some of the not so sharp dogs, it takes a little bit longer, but they'll all get it as long as the work's done in the interim, right? If you do your job with the skills that I teach you, your dog will smoke it. Yeah.
So once you train a dog and it goes to the family, to its home, does it ever need to come back for any kind of refresher training?
Yes. For instance, the protection dogs that we train and sell, if I sell a fully finished protection dog to you, okay, part of that sale is 2 days with you to teach you how to go forward with your dog, right? So I sell you a dog. I work with you 2 days. I explain you the commands, whether they're in Dutch, whether they're in German, or whether they're in English. I give you the commands and show you how to work your dog. Then we have the time where the dog bonds. And sometimes that's a month, sometimes that's 2 months. So it's really hard to expect that dog to be what he's going to be 3 or 4 months down the road the first week. Okay. Because dogs have separation anxiety. They grow to love whoever they're working with. And if I've worked this dog for 6 or 8 months, that dog's pretty attached to me, and he goes to a new home, he's got a bond with that new family. So after they have this dog, I always recommend especially for family protection dogs, that they come back yearly for a refresher and to do some bite work training. I would like to have it that monthly they do bite work training. We have one of the only Working Dog Association of America sanctioned clubs in Northeast Tennessee or Southwest Virginia. I don't think there's anything south of us until you get to Chattanooga, and nothing until you get to Roanoke. So what we have is we have club on Sundays after church, and a lot of these dogs that we work come in for refresher work, for bite work. So it's much like firearms training, and we can talk about that just a little bit, but much like firearms training, if I give you a course and we do a 4 or 6 hour course, and you never pick up your weapon or you never fire a round at the range, your proficiency's going to go downhill, right? You're either going forward or you're going backward. There's no stalemate. So same with your dog. If your dog is a top shelf protection dog and he's fully trained and certified, but yet the dog never works on his bite work, never works on his command structure, and never works on obedience, he's going to be a big turd in a year, right? So I always recommend, at the very minimum, once a year, let's work with him for a day. But if possible, once a month would be better, much better. And then you got a confident dog, and again, it's just like firearms training, you know. You would never ask a police officer just to shoot his weapon one time a year. That would be silly, and so why would you ask less of a dog that is an animal that's willing to stand in the gap, to be that buffer between you and the evil of the world? And that's what these dogs do. Make no mistake. When I say that a dog is a finished certified protection dog, that dog will absolutely stand in the gap when told to, or when ascertaining a real and credible threat. Okay. There are a few dogs that can themselves ascertain a real and credible threat. Those are very few and far between. The vast majority of dogs bite when they're told to bite. But there are a few that can recognize a threat, that's an iffy situation. We don't want every dog trying to say, hey, I think that might be a bad guy, but there are a few that can really do that and do it well. But if that dog is willing to stand in the gap, it would be silly not to continue the training on that. I mean, you, for instance, I've known you for many years now, several years, and you're always working on yourself, working to get smarter, get better, and I work on my craft daily. So it'd be silly not to ask that dog, who is an actual buffer between you and evil, not to work on his craft too. Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. So this last question kind of comes from living in a fairly large neighborhood with a large dog population.
Yeah.
So we have this neighborhood Facebook page, and once a week or maybe twice a week, there's someone complaining about a neighbor's dog pooping in his or her yard. So this question is, how do you train a dog where to go to the bathroom and not use it in the neighbor's yard?
Okay. So dogs really want to poop and pee in the same general area. Okay. That goes back to the wild in the dogs and instinctual behavior. They really want to poop or pee in the same area if they can. So what you do is you decide that area, and you decide it with a leash or with a long line, a 15-foot long line. So you kind of control the area in which they use the bathroom. Okay. And once they do potty in that certain area, you reward them either with a high value food item or with a praise reward or with something that says, hey, that was a good job. Even though I know it's just like you did your kids when you rewarded your kids when they learned how to use the bathroom and the potty. You gave them something, or you loved on them, and you made a big deal out of it. So what you do then is generalize that behavior. So after I've used the bathroom 4 or 5 times and I've got rewarded in that spot, I have a positive connotation about using the bathroom in this area, and I'll never use it anywhere else. This is where I potty, right? If I'm in the yard, that's where I'm going to potty. So that's how we do that. We do it in a positive reward-based structure, right? And then, if your dog, again, has a good command structure, if your dog is obedience trained and has a good command structure, my dogs understand, ah. If I say, ah, right, my dog's like, I did something bad, right? So by the same token that you're rewarding for that good behavior, right, then that negative marker word, we call them markers, that negative marker word, at, if they use the bathroom somewhere else, you give them an at. And if they recognize that, again, if the command structure has been done beforehand, they say, okay, negative over here, positive, and dad loves it over here. Where am I going to use the bathroom? There's no question, right? So that's how we train for that. If you do the work on the front end, it makes it much easier on the back end.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So would you like to, if somebody wants to get in contact with you, you want to share your phone number, email address, or
sure.
whatever contact you want to share?
Yeah. Trained Wright Canine. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. It's trained with WRIGHT, trained with an ED, Trained Wright Canine. Facebook and Instagram. You can contact me through either of those social media platforms, or you can call me at 423-646-7153. Email address is cmwright7153@gmail.com. And look forward to hearing from everybody.
All right, Mike, thanks. And like I said before, maybe I can get you back to talk about a couple of those other subjects that we talked about before.
Yeah, I'd love to.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
See you, buddy.
Bye.